Welcome to my recap of Countdown, a horror film about an app that counts down to your death. Enjoy. The app is called Countdown, and it claims to predict your exact time of death. Not believing its power, a few friends at a party download it. Though Courtney is disturbed at her result, she only has 3 hours left. Later, she leaves with her boyfriend Evan, but notices he's too drunk to drive, and she insists on walking instead. He drives off without her, and the app notifies her that she's broken the user agreement. Just over 7 minutes remain. She reaches home, and the clock approaches 0. Suddenly, she's pulled into the air by an invisible force and slammed back into the ground, her neck snapping on the edge of the bathtub. She dies as the clock strikes 0. Elsewhere, her drunk boyfriend recovers from his crash into a tree. A branch impales the seat where Courtney would have been sitting. At the hospital, Evan prepares for surgery. He tells a nurse about the app, how it knew Courtney was meant to die in the drunk driving accident that night, and how it now shows he only has 19 hours to live. He's going to die in surgery. Some of the hospital staff gets curious and downloads the app, including Dr. Sullivan and Evan's nurse, Quinn Harris. She accepts the user agreement and sees the result, just under 3 days. In the elevator on her way out, Dr. Sullivan gets uncomfortably close. She visits her old home where her younger sister Jordan accuses her of barely ever being around, and her father invites her to join them to visit her mother's grave on Saturday. At the hospital, Evan checks the app. Just over 3 minutes remain and the surgery will soon begin. He gets up to leave and skip the surgery. User agreement broken, it notifies him. In the mirror, he spots a robed figure behind him, but when he turns to look, no one is there. But in the mirror, it remains. The figure rushes toward him in a blink, the mirror shatters, and Evan runs into the stairwell. The lights turn off, and in the darkness, he sees his girlfriend's corpse, standing with her head turned to stare at him. Courtney's body rushes toward him. Evan is thrown to the bottom of the stairwell, his head slams into the ground, and he dies as the countdown reaches 0. Quinn hears about his death and thinks of the app. She checks his phone, but it's locked. So she heads to the morgue and scans his face to open it. She sees the countdown at 0 and checks her own app. 1 day and 22 hours remain. She calls home and tells her dad she won't be able to make it Saturday to visit her mother, and the app warns that she's broken the user agreement. She joins Dr. Sullivan to check on a comatose patient, and while they're alone, he tries to assault her. She pushes him away, and he gives a phony apology, saying he thought that she was sending him signals. That night, she tries to delete the app, but it won't work. Then she researches it online and sees people writing it off as a hoax. She closes her laptop and sees Evan, her dead patient. In a blink, he's gone. Quinn throws the phone to the ground, stomps on it, and runs out of the house. The countdown continues, with 1 day and 12 hours remaining. She heads to her car and falls asleep, but gets woken up by Jordan. Back inside the house, Jordan asks if she can stay over. Their dad is on a work trip, and she doesn't want to stay with the babysitter. Quinn tells her it's not a good time, and Jordan accuses her of being an awful sister, ever since their mom died. The next day, Quinn buys a new phone with a new number at Doc's Wireless. The store manager offers to jailbreak it, but she declines. As soon as the phone is in her hands, the Countdown app appears. Back in her car, she checks her rear view camera and sees a robed figure watching her. When she looks behind her, nothing is there. Then large grotesque hands grab her face, and she slams on the gas, backing into a parked car. Its owner gets out to yell at her until another man, Matt, sees the trouble and scares him off. He overheard Quinn talking about the app in the cell phone store and shows that he's got the same problem. His countdown shows 18.5 hours left. They talk at a bar. Both have received notifications about violating the user agreement, but neither actually read the agreement, and the app doesn't allow you to access it after the fact. So Matt suggests they get someone else to download it so they can have a look at the agreement. He finds the perfect target, a nearby conspiracy theorist drunkenly rambling about the flat earth. Matt gets him to download the app. This time, they read the terms and conditions. Any attempt to use information derived from Countdown to alter the user's fate will result in a breach of this agreement. They realize both of them canceled plans after learning their fate: a visit to her mother's grave for Quinn and a train ride to his aunt for Matt. They head to the hospital and ask for the priest's help, but he explains that he doesn't really believe in demons or curses. Instead, he gives them info for someone he thinks would be more useful. Before they leave, Matt heads to the bathroom, and as he washes up, hears a boy crying. Under the stalls, he sees the boy barefoot, somehow walking through the walls between stalls. Suddenly, the boy rolls his feet until they snap backwards and the lights shut off. The boy attacks him in the darkness, whispering, "Matt, where is it, Matt?" Meanwhile, Quinn learns that Dr. Sullivan went to HR and lied, accusing her of cornering him in the patient's room. The administration suspends her, but she tells them the truth and storms out. They visit the man recommended by the priest, Father John, another priest who is a bit more open in his beliefs, and he tells them a story. A gypsy woman told the prince the time of his death. When he altered his plans to avoid it, the demon Ozen came for him instead. Father John thinks that's what's happening here, but it would help to see the app's code. He asks if they know anyone who could hack it, and they return to Doc's wireless. After some begging and a couple of bribes, the manager agrees to help. He's surprised to find the simple app is 60 gigs, and when he accesses its source code, they find some Latin writings. And they find a list of everyone who's downloaded the app, along with their countdowns. Quinn is frustrated to find her sister downloaded it and is scheduled to die 3 minutes before her. At her behest, the manager alters the countdown, adding 86 years to Jordan's life. He does the same for Matt and Quinn, then leaves them. Although relieved, neither wants to be alone. Quinn invites Matt to her place, and they talk about death. When he was a kid, Matt's younger brother Jeff died. But before that, when they were at the hospital, Matt was jealous of all the attention his sick brother got. So he stole one of his toys, and still feels guilty over it. Quinn talks about her mom. One night, Quinn snuck out of the house for a party. Her mom came looking for her and was killed by a drunk driver. Later in the night, Quinn wakes to a sound at the door. She shakes Matt's arm to try and wake him, then Matt enters the room and asks if she was calling his name. The arm around Quinn is not his. She screams and suddenly it's gone. Matt comforts her, assuring that it was just a nightmare. Then her phone screams and the app reveals that her countdown has reverted to its original state. 4.5 hours remain, less than 2 hours for him. Elsewhere, Quinn's sister sees the update and is haunted by the voice of their dead mother. "Where's your sister?" she asks. Then the voice takes the shape of a corpse. "Where is she?" it demands. Jordan runs, then finds Quinn and Matt at her front door. They frantically drive to Father John's church, where he reads the Latin they found in the app's source code. It's a curse, he explains, and it can be broken by proving the demon a liar, by proving the countdown is wrong. All they need is for one of them to outlive their clock by a second, and the curse will be lifted for all who downloaded the app. He shows them a protection spell to create a circle impenetrable by demons. It would protect them long enough to break the curse. Father John blesses the salt, and they use paint to ensure it stays in place. The lights go out, and with 2 minutes left on Matt's countdown, they get in the protective circle. The demon's growls surround them, and suddenly it appears in the darkness. The circle protects them, and the demon vanishes. Then Matt's phone screeches, and the others cover their ears, but he doesn't hear it. All he hears is the sound of a small toy dinosaur, the one he stole from his dying brother. And then he sees him. His brother asks for him to return the toy and lures him forward. Hypnotized by the vision of his younger brother, Matt steps out of the circle. The demon drags him away, knocking over shelves and other objects to block the other's path. They chase after him and get outside, just in time to see a car hit him. As the countdown reaches 0, Matt dies. Quinn notices Jordan is bleeding, apparently wounded in the chaos. They rush her to the hospital. She's going to be okay, but only minutes remain on their countdowns. Then, Quinn notices Dr. Sullivan checking on her sister. She remembers the way he mistreated her, and from another nurse, learns that she isn't alone. And she thinks of the other way to prove the countdown wrong. Outliving it is one option. The other is killing someone before their clock runs out. She seduces the doctor, luring him to the closed wing. She beats him with a crowbar and prepares to inject him with a lethal dose of morphine. Jordan arrives just as the doctor is pulled away by an invisible force, saved by the demon, hoping to prevent them breaking the curse. She chases the doctor, but the invisible force makes it impossible to reach him. Meanwhile, less than a minute remains for Jordan, and the demon corners her, until Quinn arrives and threatens to inject herself with the morphine, killing herself before her countdown runs out. A vision of her mother appears to try and stop her, but Quinn is undeterred. She takes the injection. The demon is destroyed, and Jordan sobs over her older sister's body. Then, she notices Quinn wrote a message on her arm, Narcane, and a circle indicating where to make the injection. Jordan finds a needle in her sister's pocket and injects the Narcane, a drug that's used to treat overdoses in emergencies like this. Quinn returns to life and the sisters embrace. Later, they visit their mother's grave with their father, and see the news that several women came forward about Dr. Sullivan's mistreatment of them. But before they head home, Quinn receives a notification. Countdown 2.0 is now installed. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.